Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the podcast and webinar series on payments from Milestone Technologies. I am Abhilash Kaduthanum, EVP and Head of Payments for Milestone. In today's episode, we cover one of the most talked about and exciting topics, agentic commerce and the evolution of standards and protocols. Industry is upbeat about the usage and proliferation of agents that will transform our everyday experiences. We continue to see adoption of human to agent agent interactions, and we believe it will be on the upward trajectory for the next few quarters. Equally important is the evolution of standards, governance, and protocols to make these complex interactions smooth. We saw the release of AP2 protocol from Google a few weeks ago. So to discuss all of this, I have a brilliant set of panelists with me today. Charan Tota, VP of Product Engineering and Platform. Welcome, Charan.
Hi, everyone.
Saneet Bangaru, Director. Welcome, Saneet.
Hi, everyone.
Kanti Kiran, Payments Evangelist. Welcome, Kanti.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, let's start with the definitions. Let's start with Charan. What is agentic commerce? How do you define it, and how do you define it for the common people?
To start with, Abhi, agent commerce is a new way to shop where AI agents act on your behalf. You tell the agent what you want, give them the budget, preference, timings, and the agent does searching, comparing, negotiating, and even paying. So instead of you doing the transaction, you delegate the transaction. The agent isn't guessing, you authorize it with clear rules. Like you can spend up to $200 on running shoes for me, and that authorization is machine readable. That's how we make the automated buying safe and auditable at the same time.
Cool. Now, expanding on that, Saneet, can you provide me the benefits of agent-to-agent commerce? Now, how does it change the current human experience? We are all used to doing shopping, and there is always a human in the loop when we actually do the transaction initiation. So how does the experience change? How does the overall benefits look like, and both from a merchant standpoint and also from a consumer standpoint? Sanit, if you can take that question, please.
Sure, Abhi. In a nutshell, it makes shopping easier, faster, and more convenient. You don't need to spend any time scrolling through multiple apps or searching across different websites for products. You don't need to spend any time punching in your preferred payment method details whenever you're trying to buy something. The agent handles everything. It can even anticipate your needs, find the best deals for you, and manage delivery or returns. It turns shopping into a simple ask and a delightful experience.
That's going to be very interesting for the future. We are all probably looking forward for delegating a lot of our tasks to agents, and why not payments too? Moving on, how do we look at some real world examples? Now, you provided, Charan mentioned about the running shoes and the shopping experiences. Kanti, if you can actually elaborate on some of the examples in the real world and how agentic commerce is going to work, what kind of actors and what kind of participants are there, how will it look like in the real world?
Sure, Abhi. Let's take a case of purchasing running shoes, for example. So once I have an intent to purchase running shoes, what do? I go browse a few websites, compare their prices, compare the styles, compare the customer reviews, and then I make a final decision. So when it comes to agentic commerce, agents can actually help us to shortcut this entire process depending on the mode that we adopt. So we can have a process driven by agents, but prompted for user inputs or completing the end-to-end payment experience autonomously as well. So let me explain in detail what I mean. So all you need to do is first express your intent to the agent. So just say that, okay, I want to buy a pair of running shoes for a marathon next month. That's it. So if you look at the prompt that you have given, this can be given as a textual prompt or a voice-driven prompt, which will be converted in a way the agent can interpret it. But it seems that this prompt is missing some information. What size, what color, what styles. Let's say some of this information is already stored as part of your customer profile when you signed up for agentic commerce. In such a case, the agent would read those preferences, size, color, styles, and then decide again how to go about it while searching. But there is some other information which is still missing there. So where the agent can actually prompt, this information is neither available in the request that you have given, nor the preferences that are there. By when do you need this product by? Let's say you say, I need it by next week. This would help the agent to filter for shipping and carriers, which would be able to deliver the product within your preferences. If it's not feasible, the agent would again prompt you with an updated set of, say that the shipping options, these are the ones that are available and they're available by these dates. So, okay. So once you give this information, the agent would then go and score multiple websites or e-commerce applications for the products according to the criteria that you have given. So once the products have been shortlisted by the agent has two options. Either it can filter for the topmost preference depending on the user reviews, prices, and other criteria, and continue to shop autonomously, or it can present to the user or prompt the user to make a selection. So once the user makes a final selection, then the agent can continue to complete the payment experience by picking up the credentials from a credential manager who is associated with this e-commerce process. So once that is credentials are picked up and the payment method is identified, the agent proceeds to fill in the forms, add the shipping details, and finally place the order. In addition to this, in traditional e-commerce, whenever there is a delivery coming in, you have to probably visit multiple websites to check on the delivery status or which position of transit it is and so on. But in this case, the agent can be configured to provide real-time updates to the user. So whenever there is a change in status, the agent itself can prompt the user or send notifications to the user that this is the status of delivery.
No, excellent, excellent. In fact, we're not allowed to do that kind of retail experience, but maybe even in the travel and hospitality sector, right? We are already planning our vacations using ChatGPT and few other tools. So probably even in that kind of example, maybe we can just provide them a list of possibilities, and then the agent would probably come up and then say what are the best travel options, which are the best airlines, what kind of tickets are available, and if you provide them a preference of the airline and seating and price range and timing and all those kind of stuff, it probably will already do the rest of the work for us. I mean, those are all exciting things, but maybe that's probably true for every industry. You take hospitality, you take travel, you take retail, probably entertainment, or maybe even look at Netflix and then say, yeah, I want to probably watch this movie if these movies have this particular rating and if these actors are present in it and if it is available for these particular timings. Yes, all of those are very interesting things, and maybe there are gaps in how our preferences and solutions are there, but that's where you maybe add on some of the intelligence and then say, yeah, what's possible and what kind of interactions can you actually limit. Charan, anything that you want to add?
I would say it's not a science fiction as such. The missing piece wasn't the shopping part. The missing piece was, can an agent be trusted to
Yeah.
actually pay? That's where the new payment protocols are landing.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's probably the segue into the next question and next topic of conversation related to, okay, the great experiences. We're all excited about it. Everybody probably wants it, wants to probably start doing it tomorrow. But how safe is it? How much can we trust it? And how much of a shopping experience do you want to really let go also? Because this is also like your conversation about, okay, if spacewalks are taken out of the space station from astronaut standpoint, would they really want it? Would you really want to let go of the wheel from a driving standpoint? Because those are also key important experience points. Now, agents may be capable of doing it. Agents may also be trusted to do it. But do you really want to let go of that? So these are two dimensions of it. One is the experience side of it. The second is how much of trust and possibility is there, integrity that you can have with these agents. So, Charan, your thoughts on the trusting side of it and what kind of possibilities are there? What needs to happen, even from a governance protocol standpoint, to make it work?
Sure. See, basically, the safety is built at like three levels. The agent has a verified identity. We know which agent is acting on what. The agent only acts within the permission you give, like spending limits, allowed merchants, or allowed categories. Then the third one is like more of every action is logged and signed. so that if there's a dispute, you can prove what happened. So these three things are the safety things that are. Or just the last year, we have seen formal protocols emerge that define how an agent actually proves that I am allowed to do this, how merchants verify that claim, and how payments complete without exposing your record or bank details. This is no longer like an AI magic. It's moving into the regulated payment territory with things like, hey, verifiable consent records, traceable authorization artifacts, and standard dispute resolution hooks. That's what would actually bring that safety into that.
Absolutely. In fact, the intent part of it that you just mentioned is very important. Now, how do you prove somebody's intent? And what does intent really mean? And so I think there is some specific mentions about how intent mandates need to be created, what kind of cart mandates are required if you really have to go about doing it. But those are all still in the evolving phase. But I guess there is a lot of muscle power that is being put together with expansion of it, and also a lot of the industry leaders are actually contributing to these protocols. I mean, because one thing is to say that yes, some newer innovations are happening, but if each of the industry giants try to do this in their own way, you will probably end up with a plethora of things and the implementation complexities and how merchants need to now start scratching their heads as to how you need to probably provide some of these very interesting things to the clients. Very, very true, very true. So specifically coming to the AP2 protocol, Kanti, there's a lot of interest because Google just launched it 2 weeks ago. The protocol that they launched, there are a lot of payment processors and real companies like Amex and Master and PayPal and a whole lot of entities started participating. At least they've mentioned that they will be backing it up and providing solutions around it. What's your take on it, and anything that you can elaborate on the specifics of the Google AP2 protocol itself?
Sure. So AP2 protocol is nothing but a set of standards or rules or a framework with an objective to ensure that agent-mediated payments complete securely and seamlessly. So this protocol has been developed by Google along with collaboration with more than 50 plus industry partners. So as I said, these rules or protocols or standards which can be used interchangeably let AI agents pay for things safely on the customer's behalf. So these standards help to consummate a financial transactions which are initiated by AI agents, but acting under customer instructions. So this is the fundamental thing that needs to be kept in mind. AP2 protocol is currently leading the path for a fundamental transformation of digital commerce. So who uses AP2 protocol? Any entity or any organization which has an objective like we must enable secure seamless transactions where AI agents may purchase on behalf of a user. So how does it work then? So AP2 protocol is structured in such a way that it uses a role-based model of execution where each actor has specific responsibilities but limited data access. So the advantage of that is it ensures privacy, security, and prevents any single party from acting unilaterally. So what's the outcome of this? The biggest problem it solves is trust. Without a standard, an agent can accidentally or quietly change something that the customer is purchasing, or how they are paying, or how much they are paying. AP2 protocol ensures that there is no such accident happening by creating signed tamper-proof paper trail. So how do they do this? So AP2 protocol uses cryptographically signed digital mandates to prove user authorization, authenticity, and accountability in user transactions.
Great.
Just to add to what Kanti said, right? The big deal is that the large payment players are aligning on a common envelope for agent-initiated payments. We have seen merchant-initiated payments. We have seen customer-initiated payments. Now the agent-initiated payments is actually taking form. That's usually the moment where an ecosystem stops being a demo and becomes an infrastructure. That is what we are actually looking at.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, nothing moves other than unless some of the heavyweights actually pull their weight behind some of the newer protocols and solutions, and also implementation complexities related to that. And also when we look at these possibilities, right? As you earlier mentioned, how does the disputes happen? How does the chargebacks happen? How does actually authorization happen? Sanit, you have some views on how in the future, how should some of these things actually start happening? How does the authorization, which was essentially till now we were proving that you are who you are from a human authentication standpoint, and you have good funds in your account. These were the two things, authentication and authorization, that we were all used to in the card industry. Now you also have to start proving that it is you or your agent initiating it. And would you have to have a different set of risk rules that you have to actually follow when you have agent initiated transaction as opposed to a human initiated transaction? I don't know. Are there things like that that probably need to come into place? Are processes trying to put some guardrails around it, at least in the initial months, to see how agentic commerce should not now start getting into a issue with respect to risk and fraud, and essentially into a dispute problem at the end of the day, because chargebacks are costlier. How do you now deal with the payment operation side of it is not so simple, because these things have worked like a charm over the last few years, because this has been standardized, how disputes has to be handled, how Visas and MasterCard's chargeback systems have all been configured, how merchants and acquirers and issuers have to work together. These are all defined very well. Now in the future, how is it going to look like? Any specific views that you can provide, Sanit?
Sure, Abhilash. Uh, one way to look at it is, once you authorize your agent, you can define clear permissions like spending limits, allowed merchant categories, or transaction types. Now, these agents will have unique digital IDs, so you always know who is acting on your behalf. And if issues come up, a detailed audit trail make disputes, chargebacks, or even refunds much easier to handle. If you ask me, the whole model is about transparency and accountability.
Okay. Anything, Kanti, Charan, you want to add?
So, what is accountability? What does it mean? Accountability means trust. So, what does trust mean? Trust means that you're doing an action that you're supposed to be doing, irrespective of whether you're being monitored or not. But when it comes to machines, how do you know that trust can be established? Only by monitoring it. And AP2 protocol exactly provides a mechanism for monitoring, or what we call it here as traceability. Every event in an agentic commerce journey is encrypted using signed keys by an actor that initiates the event. So, what happens because of that, and what are the steps that are involved there? Let's say I prompt an agent. The agent received the prompt, checks for my preferences that are stored against my user account. The question comes, what did it check? While trying to check, did it check only the relevant parameters, or did it retrieve some other information? After retrieving, what type of search did it initiate? What were the results returned as a part of the search? And so on. So all this way, through negotiation, payment execution, delivery monitoring, all of these steps or events are cryptographically signed as per the mechanism defined in the AP2 protocol. This is what the protocol pushes for, so that event authenticity is maintained and persisted. So once it is signed, all these events are stored in a secure tamper-proof ledger or a data store. Why? So that it's compliant. What is it compliant with, and why is it compliant? It's compliant with the rules that there has been no tampering. Why is it compliant? Because it establishes an auditable chain that includes evidence for all events and the entities that initiated those events. So why is it necessary? Because in case of any dispute, there's always a capability where we can backtrace each and every event and the response to that event to the source of that particular event and the source of the response to that event. So a key component of AP2 protocol is that it provides user control and user consent by design. It enforces certain controls so that AI agents can only act within those boundaries as defined by the user's prior consent.
Excellent.
just to add to what Kanti and Sunny said, right? We have seen know your customer, know your business. The same way, I think we'll have know your agent as well, which means the merchants and the payment processors can identify which agent acted on behalf of which human or business under what limits. For disputes and chargebacks, because every purchase carries a proof of what the agent was allowed to do, it's actually easier to resolve. I didn't approve this. We can trace, did the agent act inside its mandate or outside it? This moves us from screenshots or arguments to cryptographic evidence in terms of, so the liability can be assigned faster. Was it the agent overstepping or the merchant mispricing or actually the fraud? So that is something that would actually bring in.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, the liability shift that was brought in as a standard within the EMV framework now would have to probably be relooked and extended also with respect to how the agent and agent related activities need to be screened. And know your agent is probably a interesting term that we should probably see the more and more, I guess. But also the fact of some of these transactions now, as of now, you are nudged into buying something. Now, how do you now push some of the marketing material? Because the whole commerce activity even starts before you actually make the purchase, right? I mean, the commerce activity of identifying, even thinking about buying for a particular thing, or even a vacation planning, maybe starts few weeks, few months beforehand. So how do you now start looking at the governance processes around what is possible, what's not possible, what should be ethically possible, what should not be ethically done, and also the fact of if there are certain things that agent would have done on your behalf, is it possible for us to go back and deny? And what does denial really look like? And what part of those kind of possibilities should you account for from a provisioning of loss standpoint with respect to the issuing side of the house? There are a lot of unanswered questions probably in how it needs to probably look like. There are some governance related things. Technology is probably the easiest to actually handle and fix. But at the end of the day, it also means how regulatory aspects, what part of the intents and mandates, who is allowed to keep the mandate, who is allowed, because in the same way that you are allowed to keep the PCI related entities, how do you now store mandates? Is there a central place to actually store mandates, or are there trusted entities that can actually store mandates on your behalf, or is it always generated at the point of initiation at the consumer end? There are so many of those possibilities also that maybe can be discussed. But Kanti, even going one level uh, next with respect to the protocols, there are a couple of protocols. Now we are talking about AP2 here specifically, but the traceability side of it, what is explicitly in here and what's not there? Are there any views on the trust and traceability side of it at this stage? Because this is just the initial version release. Maybe there are a few more things that are in the store. What do you see uh, in the store kind of stuff that's coming along the way, and what is already there? Any thoughts on that?
So, see here, I think traceability component has almost reached its maturity, at least ever since the inception of the blockchain. So there's nothing more that's immutable. So I think from a traceability perspective and immutability perspective, I do not foresee anything coming out from the store unless probably say if there is some advances in quantum computing or things like that.
Mhm. Okay, we will have that as another session. Definitely, quantum is another topic of conversation. I am a physics buff myself, so we definitely want to have one quantum conversation, especially around quantum cryptography and what kind of possibilities will it have in the payments world. I mean, there are already players who are trying to work on some of those solutions too. Charan, the current protocols that are out there, because it all started with MCP was there, A2A protocols are there, then now the AP2 protocol. Do you see some of these as enhancements or complementary to each other? Are there things that will have to be still created in the future to actually make this whole thing work? Anything that you want to talk about from an evolution standpoint about some of these protocols and how complementary they are with respect to what other changes are going on in the AI industry itself with respect to agentic activities?
I think there is a misconception that each one actually is against other. They are complementary in nature and they solve different layers. For example, MCP deals with how an agent can actually plug into your tools, apps, and data set. A2A, which is like agent to agent, is about agents talking to each other in terms of negotiation, fulfillment, or logistics. AP2 is about moving money with proof of intent and authorization. So AP2 doesn't kill A2A or MCP, it sits alongside them and completes the loop. So an agent can actually go find it, agree terms, and then pay for it. The clean mental model, I would say, is like MCP is capabilities, A2A is conversation, and AP2 is settlement.
Excellent. Nicely put, Charan. Nicely put. And also to make all of these things work, Charan, what kind of technology advancements, because we know how antiquated some of the payment systems are sometimes in the overall value chain. I mean, right from the transaction authorization systems, some of them are still running on TAL and TPF and mainframe. Some of them are on newer protocols, newer solutions, technologies. What kind of technology advancements and modernizations would be required to really handle this? And also from a number of transactions standpoint, do you see more proliferation of microtransactions happening, or is it like the uh, kind of transaction ticket size that we currently have is going to exist the way it is? Any comments? Any of you, in fact, Sanit, Charan, Kanti. Charan, you can start, and then
I
Kanti and
think
Sanit can add.
the whole
Sure.
experience of I browse and buy will change to I express in my intent and things should happen. So there are four pillars to actually have this, which is like the first one is being the intent frameworks. Like this is more of like you're turning your natural language, like, hey, book me a hotel in Singapore under 12K near Marina Bay. Okay. It has to be structured, machine readable, so that the order, budget, location, check-in, check-out, cancellation, all of those are actually being sent. The second one is more of like a consent and a permission framework. You give the agent scoped permissions, spend up to X, only with approved merchants or only for flights and hotels, not random electronics. Then the third one is more of like identity and trust frameworks. We need to prove who is this agent acting for and is this agent actually itself legitimate. That's like know your agent, like KYC, but for autonomous agents. Then the fourth one comes is the secure payment and tokenization. The agent doesn't pass around your raw card or bank info. Like it uses tokens and signed authorizations objects instead. So even if the merchant is compromised, your real credentials are on. Think of it like intent is like what to do, consent is like allowed to do, identity is like who's doing it, tokenization is how safely I'm paying. So coming to the second question of like how the transaction volume, I think we are at a stage where we are actually testing the water. So the token size or the amount that will be done in those particular ones will be low, as long as it is being comfortable in a zone where they feel like, hey, now I can actually trust my agent and trust the protocols to pay. That's when the ticket size would actually grow.
Excellent. Kanti, Sanit,
Yeah.
any add-ons?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a tremendous scope for evolution in the AP2 protocol's future. I think it's possible from my experience. Like, let me draw an analogy with what we already have. For example, ride hailing companies at the time of offering a ride calculate the propensity of a customer to pay an additional amount. So, this is basically some sort of predictive analytics. So, applying a similar context, I think agentic commerce will evolve in such a way that agents become more intelligent by becoming context aware. Currently, if you look at the protocols, they've been modeled around what my preferences are, what are the permissions I have given, what do I allow, and things like that. But I think it will evolve to a point where it would go beyond the user's context, beyond explicit instructions, so that agents will be able to anticipate deadlines, budgets, brand affinities, brand recall, and so on. Agents will evolve to a state where they could easily anticipate the emotional state and proactively recommend products. Again, I still think that is just the tip of an iceberg that we started off with. We are mostly restricted to commerce currently. Why not IoT? Why not wearables? So, yes, there are a lot of areas that could evolve in the future of agentic commerce.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
And building on what Charan and Kanti said, I'm also interested in the kind of impact it will have not only on the consumer, but other players in this value chain, the merchants, the platforms, right? For example, the customers, the curation is already done, the friction is being reduced, the checkout experience is made seamless. But at the same time, for the merchants, I believe this will make things much more easier in terms of curating the loyalty and rewards optimization. At the time of checkout, they can apply the right kind of discounts, or they can offer the right kind of rewards to the consumers, thereby increasing the loyalty of their consumers. And also, if I take an example of the platforms or the merchants, the dispute resolution is much more streamlined, and including the chargebacks, the buyer protection workflows, I think will evolve and will be more seamless for both platform merchants and the consumers. And even if you talk about merchants, take order management. Yeah, while it makes things easier for the consumers in terms of tracking, etc., at the same time, it's also making things easier for the merchants in terms of delivery coordination, returns, refunds, etc. So this, as Sharon mentioned earlier, the industry is coming together. It's building a new foundations, and I see a lot of benefits to all the players in this value chain.
No, very well said. In fact, we talked a lot about consumer and human experiences, but there's a lot more probably need to happen on the B2B side of business also.
Exactly.
And agentic commerce probably plays a big role in that side of the fence too. When we start talking about AP and AR kind of cycles, what kind of insurances, what kind of possibilities, what kind of contracts, what are rule based, what are heuristics based, what are event based, and there are so many of those kind of possibilities in those areas. And then it is probably a conversation with the treasury department, the finance department, the working of how the APAR systems are going to actually play out, and if it can be a consumer to a business, it can also be a business to consumer or business to business kind of use case that could evolve very soon in the very near future. There are a lot of exciting things probably in the next few quarters to watch on. I am very hopeful that we will definitely be at a much better place when we talk about it in the next year. But at this time, the enthusiasm is great. I mean, a lot of players are definitely experimenting. Proof of concepts are being created, and of course, platforms are vying for creation of the next level of experience. And why not in commerce and payments that is very personal to all of us. This has been a great conversation. Thank you, Charan. Thanks, Kanti, and thanks, Aneet, for providing your insights. It was very excellent discussion, and also enlightening for understanding what's coming down the lane, what's possible, and what are those constraints under which that we are currently operating, and what probably are the watch out items for. Because adoption of any new technology also comes with its own perils, but we are here to solve problems, and Milestone Technologies is definitely known for solving problems and probably being at the leading edge of technology solutions to make it happen for any of these industries. And agentic commerce is definitely one of those that we are heavily betting on. We are heavily supporting a lot of our clients. But goodbye for now, and we'll be back with more topics of interest in payments. Stay tuned.